Hey guys, it's Ash with Gamers Compete here. We are on part 3 of our Overwatch Complete Series. We're going to go ahead and continue with the basics, and we previously covered some basic video settings to try to get the highest steady frame rate that your equipment can support, and we discussed the importance of that, as well as the importance of consistency with your crosshair, and consistency, well, not consistency, as well as styles of crosshair and how to pick out your crosshair for you. So we're going to be covering aiming. There's generally two types of aiming. There's flicks and tracking. In general, burst hit scans are going to be flicks, projectiles, beams, and even the consistent hit scans, the consistent damage, the steady damage, are going to be tracking. The reason for that, the importance of tracking is that they're not all instantaneous one-hit damage and you're done. So with Tracer, we'll come up here. With Tracer, the bot's kind of moving. So you can see I'm leading the target so that they run into the bullets almost. Well, not almost, that's what they're doing.
Speed kills.
Basically, I'm doing that as opposed to following behind, because if I'm following behind, then I'm following where they are, as opposed to where they're going to be. So here's where he's at. I'm always going to be a second or two behind, so he's not getting hit with as much as if I'm leading this bot. They're going to get hit with more damage if you're leading because they're walking into it basically. Same thing with Hanzo. The reason you want to track and move with Hanzo is because your arrow's not going to arrive instantly, obviously, so you want to lead your shot. Thought that was the other bot. But you want to lead your shot so they walk into it. Then you have characters like Zarya and Sim. The reason you want to lead with them is similar to how Tracer or Soldier works. Well, similar to all the tracking heroes. Their damage isn't instant. It's going to be over time. So you can kind of hear the ticking of the beam. That's how they calculate the damage, is there's ticks. And you want to catch the bot in the highest number of ticks possible. Well, not the bot, but the target. So you want to lead them so they're walking into your beam so they get hit with as many of those ticks as possible to get the maximum amount of damage up. Then you have characters like McCree, Widow, Ashe. Their damage is going to be instant, because that's how hit scans work. The second I hit mouse 1, they're taking damage, and it's burst, so I don't have to worry about there being trickling damage. I don't need to worry about over time, stuff like that. So I can literally flick and shoot. Flick and shoot. But I recommend having a spot to flick to, or to return back to after the flick. So for me, it's going to be diagonally down on either side of what I'm aiming at. And the reason I recommend, it could be straight though, or it could be above. It could be I've seen people who flick from the foot. And flicking from the foot kind of makes sense because if you click too early, you're still going to get a body shot. So if I flick from the foot, but say I click too early, he's still getting hit even if it's not the head. But flicking is going to be faster in general because, well, one, the damage is instant, it's burst, but also you're using less of your brain power. So where I'm tracking, leading, predicting my shots with the other kinds of damage, with the burst hit scans, I'm literally just flicking to my target. The second I see my target, I'm going to shoot him, and then the damage is done. Doesn't matter I'm done and I can move on to the next thing. Same thing with Widow.
One shot. One kill. Double kill. Triple kill.
I'm going to flick my shots. You obviously don't always have to flick your shot. Like if you're going to line up your shot let them walk into it. But when you flick, as opposed to just kind of trying to, I see a lot of Widows set their shots up and kind of walk into it. It's a lot slower process as opposed to if I go flick, 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 flick. So that's why you'll see a lot of higher level players flick with the burst hit scans, like McCree and Widow. There's also arm aiming versus wrist aiming. This one you can kind of see in game, but it's a bit harder. So wrist aiming is going to be minute motions, these minute changes you can kind of see, as opposed to arm aiming. I'm going to be flicking with my entire arm. So it's good for flicks, you can flick with it. But I personally find that it's a little bit harder to get those minute adjustments. So that's when you'll find you can kind of pair the two up and everyone has a little happy medium, but you can have a certain amount of wrist and arm aiming that you use to get the maximum amount of damage out, the maximum number of shots, the maximum comfort, everything like that. But it's all going to be more or less the difference of how much arm and how much wrist aiming you're going to do is going to be up to personal preference. I do lean more towards the wrist aiming side. And like I said, that's personal preference. So that's basically going to be it. And I will see you guys later.